3 Stanley Cups, 2 World Junior Championships with Team Canada, over 1,100 NHL games, a Stanley Cup clinching goal, most goals, assists, and points for a defenseman in Penguins history. Kris Letang has done it all. And he credits much of his success on the ice to his sky-high fitness. So today we'll take a look at how Kris Letang trains in the gym. Let's roll the tape. This training clip is from 2011, so almost 15 years ago when Letang was 24 years old. And you can see the power he has in his hips and legs on these hurdle jumps. They're high and look effortless. I'm not sure if he's doing this as a warm-up drill or a training exercise because he's taking those mini steps between hurdles, which breaks the eccentric concentric chain. So his muscles, joints, and tendons absorb the high forces upon landing. Then he does that little hop before launching into the next rep. If he's training for maximal power and elasticity, it's better to do all reps continuously. So as soon as you land, you immediately go into your next rep. That's why I'm thinking he's doing these as a warm-up, perhaps to take some stress off the joints with the mini hops as he's preparing for the upcoming workout. I can't say for sure that's what's going on, but that's how I'm reading it. Now he's on the agility ladder. I'm not a fan of it for speed development. I think the ladder is way overrated. And young athletes particularly get sold this idea that if you just move your feet faster on ladder drills, you will move faster on the field, which is not the case. I'll probably need to do another video to expand on this topic, but for now it looks like Kris Letang is doing these as another warm-up drill with a mini band looped around his legs. I can accept that. The band adds variable lateral resistance, so anytime he takes a step outside of the ladder, like right here, you can see how much the rubber band expands, and with that, it forces your abductors, glutes, and outer thigh muscles to work harder to maintain proper leg positioning and control. Then when he takes another step inside and the band shrinks, now there's less resistance. And this keeps repeating in a quick bang, bang, bang fashion. The constantly changing resistance challenges your feet and ankles to maintain balance and proper alignment of the joints. Using the ladder during warm-ups in this way is fine. Then it looks like we're finally in the actual workout itself. Chin-ups with a 120-pound dumbbell. Let's see how many he gets. 1, 2, 3. That's 4 reps at 120 pounds. More important than the weight is the technique, and I gotta say, I'm not 100% happy with it here. You can clearly see that the elbows are bent at the bottom. He's not going all the way down into a full hang. This is typical for hockey players at all ages and at all levels because the exercise is easier if you cut the range of motion short at the bottom. So athletes love to do that, unless you demand full range of motion on every rep. And because you're working over a shorter range of motion, you can use more weight than with complete reps, so that's what guys default to. They think more load is better, and what's gonna happen is the more weight you put on the chin-up belt, the shorter and uglier the reps will become. So with Letang here, I would decrease resistance to get those proper reps in. If he has never trained over a full range of motion in the past and has only been doing these shortened reps, then his performance is going to take a big hit because he hasn't built up the muscle and joint strength as well as confidence in that bottom range of motion. So he's doing a 3-rep max at 120 with bent arms. And the camera angle isn't the greatest here because you cannot really see how much more room he still has to go lower. A shot from the side would tell us that story, but I wouldn't be surprised to see his 3RM go down to around 90 pounds when starting from a full hang. Another smaller gripe I have is with his last rep here. You can see he's struggling to get his chin over the bar, which is normal on your last rep of a really challenging set, and he kicks with his legs to help him finish the rep. When instead he should just focus on pulling with the arms and back to grind those last few inches. It's a skill that every good lifter must learn. I could give it a pass on a set where everything else looked fine and there was just some minor movement from the legs on the last rep, but now with the bent arms and the kicking, I would not count this as a good chin-up set. Okay, controlled bench press. If my counting is correct, he's using a 5 to 6 second eccentric. You'll also notice the chains on the bar. It's hard to see from here, but it seems like there's a 45-pound and 25-pound plate on the bar, which would total 185 plus the chains. Hard to say, those could be lighter plates as well, but given that we're dealing with a professional athlete, then 185 plus chains sounds about right. So we'll go with that. The purpose of the chains is to add variable resistance to the bench press, meaning the resistance changes depending on where the bar is in relation to the athlete's body. As you see during Letang's set, the closer the bar gets to his chest during the lowering part, the more chain links drop on the ground, so there's less total weight on the bar. And the closer he gets to the top during the lifting part, the more chain links are in the air, and each link adds more resistance. So you must focus on moving the bar off your chest with speed, because if you don't, the increasing resistance during the upward phase will slow you down too much and you will miss the rep. I talk about how to use variable resistance training in the form of bands and chains in the last chapter of my book, Strength Training for Ice Hockey. Check it out if you're interested, link is in the description. As for Kris Letang's form here, I've got a few pointers. First is his grip. I don't like to see athletes use the thumbless grip, also known as suicide grip. It's named the suicide grip because now the bar is no longer secured in your hand by the thumb, so it can slip out. And when that happens, it happens so fast that no spotter in the world can react fast enough to save you. You can look up bench press accidents online. You will see guys die from it every year. When I'm training athletes, self-deletion by bench press certainly is not in the training program. His grip aside, Letang's torso position appears to be correct. Again, I would have to see this from a side angle to be certain, but he's arching his back and tucking the elbows, so this part of his technique gets the green light. Ideally, he would use a full range of motion, just like with the chin-ups, and in the bench press, full range of motion means bar touches the chest. There might be a shoulder injury or some other reason he's not going that deep that we do not know about. So if that's the case, it's better to use a bench press board or even a pussy pad wrapped around the bar if you don't have a board available as a reference point for depth. Because out of the 4 reps he performs, the third one is higher than the rest. So he is inconsistent with the depth. Bar touching the chest automatically leads to consistent reps, but if you're not touching the chest, you'll want to make sure that every rep looks the same. A board or a pussy pad achieves that. One more thing I do not like here, look at his legs and feet. They come off the floor on every rep when he starts to push the bar up. This is not a strong position to press from. Most people think that the barbell bench press is an upper body exercise, but the best lifters know how important using your legs is for pressing big weights. So you need to learn how to root your feet in place and press into the ground for maximal strength and stability under a heavy load. Once you learn the technique and timing, you will instantly add 5, 10, whatever pounds to your max. All right, now we're getting to the bread and butter of Letang's training. I saw this Bulgarian split squat clip years ago and showed it to my athletes many times as motivation for what the big boys in the NHL can do. 120 pounds per hand plus extra 40 pounds from a vest, that's 280 pounds or about 127 kilos for 5 reps. Solid stuff. He doesn't take a break between legs, indicating that this isn't even a max for him. Depth, torso position, controlling the weight throughout the set, all look fine to me. Hurdles with a side step. I'm a bit confused here because he already did hurdles straight ahead at the start of the video. I was thinking that was a part of his warm-up. Now he's doing hurdles again, but the order of the clips indicates that this is his 4th exercise of the day. Or maybe he did these earlier in the workout and they just edited it out of order. In any case, if you're doing an explosive exercise like the hurdle jumps here, barring a few exceptions, you'll want to do them at the start of your training session before the heavier strength lifts. Because right now it looks like Letang finished 3 exercises, the chin-up, bench press with chains, and Bulgarian split squat before these jumps. That's not optimal because his nervous system would no longer be fresh at this point from the heavier lifting, and neither would be his legs after the Bulgarians, so he's not going to be as explosive as possible. And since the goal of jump training is to become more explosive, which requires maximal power outputs, which can only be achieved when your nervous system is fresh, this would not be a smart way to organize a session. Then Letang moves on to TRX Inverted Rows. He's got a weight vest on, and on top of that, even more external weight. It doesn't say how much, but it looks like more than 50 pounds in added resistance based on how Letang's trainer lifts it off his chest. This is not a 10-pound bag, that's for sure. 5 reps and an isometric hold for a few seconds to finish the set looks good to me. Ideally, the feet would be planted in place better. You can see how he adjusts his foot position early on, and then the toes point forward and back on every subsequent rep. Minor detail, but we want to clean up the execution as much as possible and ensure only the upper back, the area being trained here, contributes to the movement. The rest of his body should stay completely rigid. The fact that he adjusts his feet and doesn't let go of the TRX right when the video fades out makes me think he probably will extend the set with additional reps we don't get to see. Because 5 reps on the inverted row is on the low end. Typically, you'll see it programmed for 8 or more reps in a continuous set to really pump up the mid-upper back muscles and lats. So while I cannot say for sure because the video cuts off here, I would expect that Letang continues with maybe another 5 reps using the weight vest he's wearing, and perhaps he does 5 more with just his body weight after that, which would mean 15 total reps instead of 5, decreasing load every 5 reps. That would make more sense to me than treating inverted rows as a strength lift with a heavy set of 5. The sled push is up next. This exercise helps with your stamina on and off the ice big time. Difficult to say how much weight is on the sled. Looks like 2 plates on each side, but those are not thick plates, so they're probably not 45 pounds each, maybe 25. So that would be 100 pounds total plus the weight of the sled itself. It's always difficult to assess how hard a sled drill is based on the load alone because the surface plays such a big role in how much friction and resistance you have to overcome to move the sled. But based on the fact that Letang is able to go back and forth 3 times, so 6 stretches of what looks to be a 10 or 15 meter turf while never slowing down to a walk, that's impressive. The sled is such an underrated conditioning tool. I've had many hockey players tell me how helpful it has been for improving stride power when you're getting tired late into a shift. You can clearly see how Letang gets slower on each turn here. His first back and forth is faster than the second go around, which again is faster than his third. And that's all to be expected because it's impossible to sustain the same high pace throughout the entire set when fatigue kicks in. But the important thing is you don't quit when your legs and lungs are burning. And the same mindset carries over to the ice when you're huffing and puffing after a few hard sprints. But then you realize your legs still have more juice because you pushed and dragged a sled all summer. That stuff is really going to carry over to your game. Which is why sled work is among my top 5 tools for increasing a hockey player's game endurance. You can read more about how to program sled exercises along with other conditioning methods I use with athletes inside my book, Hockey Conditioning Manual. I'll drop the link in the description. That was Kris Letang's off-season workout. We saw mostly good things. There's nothing that stood out to me as being completely out of whack when it comes to exercise selection or technique. I would like to see a full range of motion both on weighted chin-ups and bench presses, as well as more stability through the legs in the bench press. These would be the 2 things that would help him get even more out of these heavy lifts. Let me know in the comments which NHL stars workout you would like to see me critique next. Also join my Pro Hockey Performance Crash Course. It's 100% free. This is for athletes who want to take their performance to all new heights. From building muscle and developing blazing speed to pushing your game endurance through the roof, you'll discover it all inside the Pro Hockey Performance Crash Course. I reveal the exact same proven off-ice tips, tricks, and training methods I use with everyone from junior players to men's rec leaguers, all the way up to D1 and NHL players to revamp their game. The information inside is unlike anything else you can find on the internet. So if you're serious about making more gains in the next 4 months than you have made in the previous 4 years combined, do it right now before you forget. Link is in the description.